Hello everyone, this is your weather woman, meteorologist Amy Metz. Right now, it is about 7 o'clock in Suva, Fiji. Beautiful place. That's what I'll be focusing on for this forecast. So bula to everybody there. That's a nice hello greeting. In Fiji, now Vanuatu and New Caledonia off toward the west had so many storms recently, but what we're looking at is Tuesday night into Wednesday, the forecast for this part of the world. And it's showing that there will be a low pressure system similar to a very low, very weak tropical cyclone out at the worst. So right now, miles per hour, it's showing that this is probably going to be about 45 miles per hour. That's right along the threshold. So, at worst, again, it's not going to be anything more than what we saw in Vanuatu with tropical cyclone Irene. So this is stronger than what will be coming to Fiji. And this was just very localized, a few places that saw some things like that. Otherwise, around town, the rains weren't very bad. Now, this time there is more rain. So the heavy rains have been going on. So that could cause a little bit more mess in Fiji, which is right here where I'm circling. All this cloud cover in white is where it's actively raining in a lot of those areas. Now off toward the west of Australia, there are a couple of more storms that have been forming that are not very strong either. So these will be moving off towards sea and not inhabited lands. Doesn't look like they'll get very strong heading toward Madagascar, but I'll be keeping an eye on those. But for the focus of this, it will be tropical cyclones near the South Pacific, near Fiji. So this is what's been going on, what I posted the other day. And I told people on my Weather Woman page on Facebook, excuse me, I'm trying to get to the comments here. I told people go ahead, leave comments down below, and I will get to them as I usually do. So they keep changing the way I can see comments here, but now I'll go ahead and get to some of the questions that I had seen. So Rohini wanted to know if the cyclone forming near Fiji will be strong. And so what I had just shown actually was how weak it would be, the very lowest end, if they even call it a tropical cyclone. So for instance, the Fiji Met Office where I am here, they show that right now on the surface map is what we're looking at. There's the low pressures near Fiji just to the north. Thunderstorms going on there, so there's rain and lightning. But as far as their tropical cyclone forecasts, they don't have anything forecast right now. So this would be a few days from now, very low, so low that it's not even forecast right now with the Fiji Met Office. So whether or not this gets a little bit stronger and upgrades it may or may not happen. So my point here is that no matter what, we're going to have this low pressure. It's not here yet. We do have the rain and storms. So here's that satellite view of where the clouds are causing a lot of the rain and thunderstorms. So it's mostly north of Fiji right now, the stronger rains, but there is some in Fiji as well. But things have dried out after weeks of rain near New Caledonia and Vanuatu, where these very weak low pressures were forming. So only one got the name Tropical Cyclone Irene. Perhaps this could happen again, but not a good chance. Either way, it's going to be so close to one that do understand it's going to rain a lot for the next week here. So the upper level winds are something I can look at to help with that forecast track. But just to show in contrast of the dramatic difference here, this was Tropical Cyclone Cody last year that happened to send water all the way up into the streets and into buildings. So there was storm surge with a very strong cyclone where the wind speeds were not close to 45 miles an hour or kilometers for people in that part of the world. It was well under 100 kilometers, what's happening with Irene. But when we got Tropical Cyclone Cody, that was closer to 200 kilometers, and it actually pushes the wall of water up while the storm is forming and getting closer to land. So what happens here is that you have rain falling on the mountains, like we saw that photo of Fiji at the beginning here. You have rain falling on mountains like this. It actually causes more and more rain, just those clouds running into mountains. That's a feature of it. So that's where you get flooding downstream and can have very bad floods. I have some on my YouTube video where I interviewed a friend of mine from Fiji who was living in Hawaii. It was 20 miles from rainfall like this, 20 miles away near where the water drains into the ocean, living there along a drainage route that was not typically part of the rainfall that would fall in this area, but it did gather so fast during a storm that it ended up flooding 20 feet high with the water. And so when you have these storms that are causing so much rain plus the strong wind, it actually just has wind pushing that water so strong for so long, it makes it a whole wall along with all that other flooding. So then you have situations like this along the coastlines. Luckily, this is nothing in the forecast. I don't see anything forecast like this. But typically these would happen a little bit later in the season, so we'll just keep an eye out for anything worse. Luckily, as Rohini's asking how strong this will be, it'll be extremely weak, less than what we just saw with Tropical Cyclone Irene. Just a lot of that heavy rain, and then some little tiny limbs and tree branches falling. So otherwise, any kind of questions, I did remember seeing another one in here. Here it is. Yeah, that schools are opening on Monday. So somebody wants to know what's going on next Monday with the forecast. Now, by then, I haven't actually dug into it that deep. I thought that would be fun to do live. I don't think there's any other specific questions that I'd seen earlier, so I still don't see any. So yeah, I'll go back to that question then about Monday, because that will also play into looking at how this whole cyclone, and I'll say low pressure system that'll be very, very close to a cyclone, is about to form. So what I use a lot to show people what's going to happen with the weather is going to be how the winds are moving at different places in the atmosphere. So down where we're standing right now, down at the surface, this is showing that high pressure I shared about on my page last week, it would cause a lot of the dry weather, where it was a little bit more dry during the nights in Fiji compared to what we just had. That's moving away. So that's the air spinning in this clockwise motion there right now. Now near Fiji, we see that there's this blue. Near Vanuatu, it's extra blue. That's really calm. They're not getting wind. But when we get these pressure systems pushing wind into the mountains, that's a feature that can help cause some of that rain. But on top of that, a lot of rain comes when we have our jet level doing specific things. So this is going to be the big driver, and I'll show you ways that I can understand how the cyclones or low pressures might be moving based on this. So about, let's say 300 millibars, somewhere near the top of the storms. If you see strong storms with lightning, this will be near the top level. This is where the wind is moving there. So at this point, there's nothing to say there's going to be a ton of dramatic weather here, except that we have cold air here at the upper levels moving into warm air. That's something that usually dries stuff out. So if we go down a little bit lower, as there is quite a bit of rain going on there now, then we can see that there's also a pressure system in the middle of the atmosphere. So halfway up in the sky, there's some help that's getting air from that's hotter, making it colder, moving it down toward Fiji. So it's been hot in Fiji. If we look at this level where a lot of the clouds are, the lower levels of the clouds that you see when we're standing and looking up, and that's the base, that's where a lot of the rain is. So it's probably shallow rain for the most part, and feeling really warm because the wind is actually coming from the north where it's warmer near the equator. So it's making it hot and making it rain, but not a whole ton yet. Now there probably will be a little bit more, and then jumping ahead to thinking about Monday and how that might play into school starting if there's a low pressure forming. So again, it's not going to be anything wild or strong or dangerous, but there will be quite a bit of rain. So I'm sure there's already going to be a ton of rain going on. I haven't looked in between here, so before I jump ahead to Monday, I'm just going to check a couple of things and make sure there's no reason for me to just disagree with something that happens in the model forecast here. But this is kind of what we would call the steering winds of the features of tropical cyclones if they're here, but there's not any on the map aside from what's going on here off west of Australia. But in this part of the world, it's just going to be pretty mellow until that little low pressure starts forming south of VT Levu. So I do think Monday is probably going to end up being when it starts raining. Now, my time code at the bottom here is a little different. So to get to Fiji's Monday, I'm going to jump to here. And in this case, really, there's, for the very first day of school, probably a better chance that it's going to be calmer weather. But honestly, it's going to be a little rainy for the first few days of school. And I want to say it won't be too dangerous, but there might be with how much rain there's been. Looking at satellites, there's going to be quite a bit of moisture with this, really. So when we see these deep reds, it's extra cold is what that means. Usually that cold is because it's so high in the sky, and then that means that it just, there's a lot of convection, a lot of moisture, a lot of rain. And with that, I'll play it out for the last 12 hours in a loop. And you'll kind of see that it's hardly moving. And so if we're going to have a low pressure in a few days forming, it will actually start to drag down some of that moisture over Fiji again. So it's going to be rainy for quite a while. And probably almost the first half week of school then, I would think, is going to be more rainy than not for the entire area of Fiji, really. And this is going into Tonga as well with a lot of that moisture. Samoa, a little on and off. So with that being said, I think that kind of wraps up what's going on there. Lots of rain, so expect some puddles, but I don't suspect anything too horrible. This isn't the kind of thing that would typically be, making any kind of problems with landslides unless you've just gotten so much rain lately. But there was some periods here that were a little drier aside from those inland showers that I'd been talking about on my page. So go ahead and enjoy the weather, stay prepared. So I'll just check real quick. I don't usually have comments in my live streams on YouTube, but I'll double check this. Yeah, no, I don't. So I'll leave that, and I'm usually just contacting or, getting in touch with people on Facebook. So you can find me here, Weather Woman, on Facebook, and to get in touch that way if you have questions or want to have me answer any questions in the live stream. So I hope everybody the best getting through the storms. Hey, and there's that was when I was at the AMS conference. Really good time. So I'll be sharing some space weather information about that pretty soon here. And enjoy the day. I'll stop